Well, thank you, Tiffany. I'm so excited to have you here and share your
Yes.
story with our favorite people today at Ignite Hope. Um, so I just want to give a little introduction to who Tiffany is. She is a pretty average young woman who grew up in the area of southeast Wisconsin. Her parents were still married as she became a young adult. She went to school and became a CNA. And then she met a guy named Chris that actually others in her family knew before.
Mhm.
So there was already a little trust issue there because, other people knew him and, just kind of a friend around. Can you briefly tell us who this guy Chris was and how he got more involved in your life?
Well, like you mentioned, he knew my family before he knew me. And we lived in a small community. And it was right after my father had passed away that I really he got a hold of me, so to speak, and knew, kind of what to do and say. But one of the, trying to make this long story a little bit shorter, is one of the things that he promised me that really caught my attention was, I will take care of your family. And my dad was the breadwinner. My mom was worked part-time, so she needed some help, and for me that was like, okay, great, I can take care of my family. So Yep.
Yeah, so again, every story for every survivor is different because every person is different. And that alone, again, our different individuality does come into play. There is no, this is how it happens.
Right.
It happens many different ways, and it's through manipulation. And so he already had a precursor of trust laying there, and then this another way to build trust is taking care of her family, what she cared about.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was free to begin to control her because really that's what happened, right?
Yes.
He became your pimp, your
Yes.
trafficker, because those two words are the same thing if you didn't understand. Trafficker's word has only been around for around 15 years or so, but it is the same thing as a pimp. And so you're a CNA, you're living your life, but somehow because through this relationship, he gets you to start stripping at a strip club in a small town, just into Dodge County, and then so you're doing this, you end up being stuck in this world of 2.5 years or so, and this is not just dancing and receiving money. We're talking, it is much deeper and uglier than that, and he didn't just manipulate her, again, mentally and emotionally through this connection for her family. There became abuse and other ways of controlling you, correct?
Yep. And I was trafficked all across the country, not just in, I would go to other states. So it wasn't just in, that small town either. So
that's a great little tidbit. Can you give us a quick answer of why didn't you just stay there if you're making money there? Why would he take you somewhere else?
you can make more money somewhere else.
Because there would be special events and things to go to?
Not necessarily that, without getting into, just because of time constraints, but there are things in other states that might not be legal in certain states.
Yes.
So that is why, and you can make more money, going somewhere else than working at this small town strip club on a Saturday night.
And this probably gives a little insight into this guy, Chris, and his network. Because she was not the only woman he was controlling. He had controlled many other women over the years. And again, that is often when the more successful to very successful pimps and traffickers are ones that don't just stay in one area. They have a network. They actually work with other groups and other people as well.
Yes.
All to just, spread the wealth and help bring in more money for everybody.
Yes.
So after 2.5 years of torturous, life-destroying circumstances in so many different ways, something comes to a head. Tell us about that night that began to change everything.
See, and I really don't know what it was. I always tell people I don't have like this great elaborate story of something that happened. But I remember being at the club, and he called the manager or the bartender at the time and asked how much I was drinking, because one of the ways he tried to protect me and make sure that I was okay was to have me not drink. at the club, or not drink so much. And then he called me, and I made some comment about how, like, when I got home, I was going to get it, or something along those lines. So I don't know. And I always laugh when I tell this. I don't know if it was the alcohol that gave me that courage or what, but I left the club, didn't call him. I had made the decision on my way home, and it was about a half-hour drive, 45 minutes, that I was just done. I wasn't going to do this anymore. And I truly didn't think things would turn out the way they did. But, got home. All of a sudden, he's coming into my house, and one thing led to another. He ended up hitting me and getting pretty physical with me, and I fought back.
And that was the first time you fought back,
very
right?
first time I fought back, yes. And I fought back more than once throughout the course of this night. And he actually ended up calling the police on me, and this is one of the big reasons I came forward. He ended up calling the police on me, and I was the one that got arrested. I was the one in handcuffs. I'm in the back of this car, the cop car, screaming about what he did to me. And yes, I was drunk. I will say that. I was under the influence. But they didn't listen. I was the one in handcuffs. They called my mom and said, if you don't come get her, we're taking her to jail. And he got to just walk away. And that's one of the things that these guys tell you. Like, you can't go to the police because you're doing things that are illegal, and they're not going to believe you. And at that point, I was like, yeah, no wonder why women don't say anything. No wonder why people don't say anything, because what they're saying is true.
And he's a controller. And so he knew if he called the cops, he's the good guy. He's calling you out as the bad guy. So they know you're the one. They come there with the thought that you're the trouble. He's the one that wants things to settle down, even though he's the one that started all. But they don't know. And they
wouldn't look at it any differently, even when I told them, because I do have a past. I do have an addiction history. And because I was drunk and had a past, they did not want to look at it any differently.
Right. It was all laid out, plain and simple, easy to see. But the next day. Okay, tell us about that.
So I went to my mom's house that night. And one of the things I remember thinking was, okay, there's no way out. Like, in order for something to happen, one of us is going to have to die. And when I say that, people are like, wow, that's really extreme. But that's what, and I'm sure a lot of women think that, but that's what I thought. Like, in order for this to truly be over, one of us is going to have to die. But that next morning, I didn't have a phone. He took my phone. A detective called my mom at work from, the same place that, it was in the same town that what had happened the night before. The detective had gotten the report about what had happened the night before, and he called my mom and he said, if you have a way to get a hold of Tiffany, please tell her that I'm coming over to pick her up. I need to know what happened last night. And so he did, came to pick me up, sat me down in this room, and I remember thinking, like, okay, I cannot say anything. I have to keep my mouth shut after what happened last night. But he sat me down and made me feel like a person. And he was like, I don't care what you've done. You can be completely open and honest with me. You're not the one I want, as far as, looking for,
trouble.
Yes. He was like, and somebody came forward about Mr. Child 6 years ago and ended up fleeing the state. So he's like, I just want to know what happened. And so I just broke down and I told him everything.
And so two huge things here for you to catch is she really felt it was life or death because she saw no way out. Think about that. No way out. Only way is either he dies or I die, or because, she's going to die in it or she's going to die out of it. She was like, I'm done. So that's huge. Just think about willing to die, willing to, at this moment, she's not sure what that means exactly, but she is feeling something's got to give. And she was hoping it was going to be him, but she had no idea. And then obviously when this detective, who had some training and understanding, sat down and saw her, listened to her, made her understand, he was there to hear her story. That changed and opened the door so that possibly she could actually live through this. Yes. And he could go down. And so moving forward, they do arrest him and he gets in jail. And then they build this case. And because of her courage and the details she was able to say with no holding back, she fully cooperated. Other women came forward for testimony to build upon this case against him to get him put away. And that is huge, because often, what were you told? Like the one girl ran away. Many don't see it through, right?
Oh yeah, that rarely happens. My story, in the sense that I got to see him sentenced, that very rarely happens, and it's sad, but it's very rare to have that ending that I
The
have.
fear and the control keeps them. They may even report it. They may go to the police, then pull back. Because again, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, their world is a mess. And they may feel strong one day and not strong the next day. It is a hard time, even with a great detective and other support. It is a big deal to walk through that situation and get their trafficker in jail, and for them to build enough of a case to prosecute him. Not just her word. They have to dig behind just her say against his say to put someone in jail, of course. So it was more than that. They could follow up and they could add all these facts together to show he was a very big manipulator. Those that he wanted to see him look good saw him as a caregiver and looking good. Those he controlled. And what I found interesting in that courtroom is it came out how he really knew how to read people, because those are the best traffickers, because he didn't use the same things on her and on the next girl and the next girl. He made use a mixture, but he knew what would work for each one of those girls to control them. So now moving ahead, we're in this courthouse. You are speaking, again, not just in front of a few detectives, this courtroom and people online listening to some of the horrific things that you went through, and same of these other women. But then he signs his plea deal. Tell us what that was like and what happened to him and how that was for you.
Oh, I mean, the day was bittersweet. It had been delayed because of COVID. So it was actually like a year later than what had been planned. And it was very bittersweet. He was handed 27 years, which is the second longest sentence that has been handed down to a trafficker ever in the Southeastern District of Wisconsin, but the longest from a plea deal, which is important to say because a lot of times it does not go to trial, just because putting the women through that, and they mostly sign plea deals, and like his was for a minimum of 15 years. So it was definitely bittersweet, and they gave all of us women the opportunity to speak, and then at the end he got a chance to speak, and I remember his words were, "I'm sorry for the pain that you think I put you through, but everything was consensual." And I think for not only me, but everybody else in that courtroom, was it surprising? No, but we were kind of hoping for some goodness and even an ounce of remorse, but that
he showed that
none.
Everything that happened was true, and he is still that man.
Yep.
He was in control, but he lost.
So it was definitely bittersweet, but it was wonderful. And like I stated, the way that it ended with me is not common, and that's sad. Like, one of the references I always use is people will spend more time in prison for selling drugs than they will for selling humans, and that's one of the reasons I want to share my story.
Awesome that you did, because again, her courage and then leading these other women for the courage is why this case was so successful. And now today, Tiffany just doesn't go back to her old life and like nothing ever happened. Again, we glossed over the torture and the abuse and the things that she went through. But this will probably have life-lasting, long effects through your process and journey in life, right?
Absolutely.
You've moved forward quite a bit. You are still seeking help and learning and growing, and you will keep moving forward, but it is a journey, right?
It is. It definitely is. Not an easy one, but it is. And you're right, life can't go back to the way it was, but you learn how to live with it and how to cope with it in better ways.
And you also learned a lot about people through this.
Yes,
than you knew
yes, I
before
did.
about yourself and others, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for sharing this with us today. I hope that you were impacted by this story and began to have more questions, and that your eyes are more opened of how this isn't so cut and dry, and this is people's lives are being shattered and destroyed, but they can come back. they are also that they're alive. They have much hope. If they are still alive, they can change the course and direction that they may be stuck in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So thank you, Tiffany. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the things, that is very important, and I say this all the time, is to educate yourself, because when one thing led to another, I got sat down in front of the FBI, and the first thing they said was, "So you're a victim of trafficking?" And I'm like, no, I just have a pimp. Like, I had no idea what it was. But if I would have known 7 years ago what I know today, I would have been able to see it, and I would have been able to say no. So educate yourselves, because it's preventable. People think of human trafficking. I remember asking my boyfriend this question. If human trafficking is girls being kidnapped, put in a semi. That's not how it is. It happens less than 1% of the time. So educate yourselves, because it is preventable, and we can help stop it, and it could save somebody's life if you do.
Amen.
Yes, amen.